Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. The Cooper Union in Greenwich Village is a small engineering and architecture school in one of the safest parts and trendiest parts of New York City. But last night, students at the library there studying found themselves barricaded, praying that the locks on the doors would withstand a furious mob, most wearing masks to conceal what they had planned to do. Watch this next video and imagine what it was like being Jewish. Many of the young men you could see wearing yarmulkes, hoping that the doors can hold back a mob of people who believe that they and the land of their people should be wiped off the face of the earth. Watch this. They're standing there huddled together as people pound on the door of a library that had just been locked. This happened in New York City yesterday afternoon. Jewish students were barricaded inside that library for 40 minutes as they pounded to try and open up that door. 40 minutes. The same mob before entering the school was outside chanting Intifada, which means to rise up against the Jews. Intifada was what we saw Hamas commit against Israelis 2.5 weeks ago. The phrase is now being used to terrorize Jewish people in the most progressive, forward-thinking city in the entire world, which, by the way, holds millions and millions of Jewish people. Somehow, the loud voices of equity, equality, liberalism, who have made New York so socially progressive, have no problem with any of this. In fact, most progressives are totally silent or are walking and chanting in support of this kind of behavior, as the Jews have become a not protected class just 80 years after they went through a Holocaust. Jews are now just white people, and as we all know, you can do anything that you want to a white person in this society. New York Councilwoman Ina Vernikov says the progressive faculty at Cooper Union canceled class for this anti-Israel walkout that quickly morphed into an anti-Semitic mob. And on top of that, there were no consequences for anybody involved, despite the mob pushing past security on its way up to the library. Imagine if the library staff hadn't been alerted to lock the doors in time. No consequences. And imagine if something like this had happened to any other ethnic group. Just imagine that. Imagine a mob of people trying to break down the doors of a library to harass and attack a group of black kids or a group of Hispanic kids. That mob would have been disassembled, arrested, kicked off campus, and expelled in a matter of hours, and we all know it. The speed at which our supposedly tolerant society would have punished their intolerance would have been staggering. That's how it would have looked, and you know that, and I know that. But somehow, right now, people calling for another Holocaust, which is a lot of what we're hearing, still maintain enough supposed moral high ground to behave this way in public with relative impunity. We are living in a time of total chaos, and a group of engineering students learned that last night the hard way.
I was nervous. I don't want to be on a campus where I don't feel safe, where I am being threatened by other students.
To see that they were like people chanting on the other side of the door, I was just genuinely very scared.
That's a kid at a library yesterday afternoon, daylight, in New York, in Greenwich Village. Genuinely scared because nobody has any idea what a mob is capable of. The temperature rises very fast in these situations. Things get very heated. Luckily for Jew-hating mobs in New York, they have a friend in the local newspaper, it would seem. The New York Times, quick to rush out and say there was no indication that the protesters intended to harm the Jewish students or anybody else in the library. Oh, thanks, New York Times. They then admitted that the students were very afraid. Blatant anti-Semitism is showing no signs of slowing down in this city either. As we speak right now, an anti-Israel protest on Wall Street is happening, and it is massive. As you take a look at the video, this is walking right down Wall Street. And we can show you one more piece of video that is just shocking to look at. Look at the sign on the ground. Look at that massive sign that they are holding. Honor the martyrs of Palestine. That is on Wall Street in New York. And look at this despicable group of people all covering their faces. They want to make sure that they don't get caught celebrating the beheading of children in New York City. celebrating some of the most horrific actions against innocent human life we can ever recall seeing. And these people are screaming to honor the people that did it. Honor pure evil right outside of the stock exchange. This city deserves so much better than that kind of excrement. Chance to globalize the intifada is what they're screaming. Many with covered faces, no surprise. A memo to those attending due to Zionist harassment, it said, surveillance, doxing, and then they throw in COVID. Yeah, right. We encourage everyone to wear masks. Yeah, don't want to lose your job as you celebrate atrocities and the beheading of children, the rape of women. Cover your faces, you little cretins. The latest iteration of Antifa, much more than aware that it is a lot easier to terrorize a city while you're wearing a mask. All right, South Carolina Senator and presidential candidate Tim Scott has a brilliant idea for the people that we're seeing screaming in support of the atrocities that we saw in Israel, the people that we're seeing tonight on Wall Street with these signs, and the senator joins us now. Sir, I can't believe in Lower Manhattan we're seeing signs celebrating the Hamas attacks, but we are. What's your plan for these people that are just these atrocious people?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable to see the level of hate and disgusting behavior from people in our country. And I would say to every single person who's come to our country on a student visa, who find themselves protesting on college campuses, when they're shouting for Jewish genocide, when they're advocating for mass murder, and when they're supporting terrorism, go home. We should deport these kids on college campuses who are encouraging for genocide, who are encouraging murder, and who are supporting terrorism. We have no place on our college campuses. And frankly, for those colleges and universities who cannot figure that out, we should remove the federal funds. We Americans do not want our tax dollars supporting terrorism. We do not want our tax dollars giving a platform for genocide. We refuse to use American tax dollars for those who believe in mass murder, especially on university and college campuses where those administrations refuse to do so because they're more interested in the tuition than they are truth.
Yeah, there's a lot of tolerance in this country. We tolerate a lot. We tolerate a lot of self-hate in this country, more than any other country in the world. But a line has to be drawn at some point. And I've seen people in the neighborhood that I live in right now, and I'm glad I'm not there right now, are walking around with signs, a huge sign that says they want to commemorate, they want to remember the attackers, the martyrs of Palestine is what they're calling them. And they're celebrating these people on our streets in this country. I agree with you. Get out. What are you doing here in the first place? You love it so much like that? Get out and go enjoy it yourself. I think Americans watch this country grow increasingly ideologically warped. I doubt that they thought it was as bad as it is. And it does seem like a lot of this, as you just said, is coming from our universities.
Well, there's no doubt that when you look at the brass tacks, what we learned over the last several months, and frankly, the last 2 weeks, is that the radical left, they're willing to weaponize race, they're willing to weaponize any single issue, any group of people to maintain their political power. That's why they refuse to bring the squad in and say, either you get in line or we expel you from the House, take away your committee assignments. They're so afraid of speaking the truth to the squad and to their anti-Semitic individuals in their party that they're just silent. Yeah. Silence makes you complicit with the very comments that we hear ringing around the nation. I'm having Jewish friends, business owners coming in, looking for ways to secure and fortify their businesses. The attacks on our Jewish brothers and sisters has to stop, and you shouldn't have to be Jewish to stand in the gap for common sense, decency, and for truth. That's America. We stand for freedom.
Yeah, and all of that emboldens the actors that we're seeing right now. I mean, when you have Rashida Tlaib up there still lying about the hospital attack, it's despicable. And that's a congresswoman in this country. I still can't believe that. I want to show this moment here. On this show, I always give credit where it's due, no matter what side of politics it comes from. This one goes to with a nod to our State Department spokesman today, who had a fantastic answer after what I thought was the most ridiculous question asked at the White House today. Take a listen to this.
The president went further to say that innocents will die and that this is the price of the war. You also said that.
I have indeed.
Yeah, don't you think this is insensitive? There being very harsh criticism about it. For example, the Council of American Islamic Relations said it was deeply disturbed and called on the president to apologize. Would the president apologize, and does he regret saying something like that? About
What's harsh is the way Hamas is using people as human shields. What's harsh is taking a couple of hundred hostages and leaving families anxious, waiting and worrying to figure out where their loved ones are. What's harsh is dropping in on a music festival and slaughtering a bunch of young people just trying to enjoy an afternoon. I could go on and on. That's what's harsh.
That's a great answer. And, and that's an answer to a question from a reporter that's trying to guilt trip the White House into condemning Israel for its response to the barbarism that we saw about 2.5 weeks ago. What a ridiculous question.
Well, I give you kudos for bringing that to the attention of conservative listeners who think that the White House has completely lost their mind in so many other areas. Yeah. It is good to see this administration take a stand for common sense. You should say to those same folks that Iran, the greatest state sponsor of terrorism, stands there on American soil and says to our nation, if you allow for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel to go into Gaza, there's going to be consequences for America. Having the Iranian foreign minister say that on our soil deserves a consequence for the entire nation of Iran. If you threaten us, you should meet with the same consequence, but multiplied by 2.
Well said. Senator Tim Scott running for president with a fantastic plan for the Hamas lovers that are here on visas. Get out. Sir, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. God bless.